So I had a comment the other day asking me to show my daily routine while I was working in my 9 to 5 and while I was building my agency. And I thought that was a pretty good idea. Since I've been getting more viewers who are also working 9 to 5s, who are trying to quit their job, trying to build an agency, I figured I'd go ahead and make this video. Today I'm going to walk you through basically my exact daily routine while I was working 9 to 5 and building my agency. And at the end of it, I'm going to give you some extra tips, if you're working 9 to 5 on, basically how you can do this and make this work for yourself. So let's start with my routine. First of all, disclaimer, it's nothing special. It's a pretty boring routine. I wasn't doing any like crazy morning routines that took me like an hour. When it comes to working 9 to 5, you basically have to do the opposite. You don't have a lot of time. Like you can't just go to the gym for 2 hours, go like meditate for half an hour. Like you don't have time for that shit. So this is what my daily schedule looks like. First of all, I'd wake up at around 5 to 6 a.m. in the morning. Usually didn't really use an alarm. I would meditate for 10 minutes right away, and right after that I just go straight to work. So I do like deep focus work for around 2 hours. So this would be around from 6 to 8 a.m. During the deep work, I'd be doing stuff like building up funnels, doing ad scripts, building out systems for my agency, basically any stuff where I need to be the one like just doing all the work, which at the beginning and even now is quite a bit. And then after that, I'd spend about an hour doing outreach on things like Upwork, setting up my cold email systems, reviewing the lines written by my VAs, and that would basically take up my entire morning. At around 9 a.m., I would go aside for a quick walk for around 10 minutes, and I have although I'm in the middle of nowhere and my neighborhood's kind of shitty, I do have a park that is 2 minutes from my house, which kind of saved me for the last 8 to 10 months. But yeah, I'd go for a walk for 15 minutes, come back, and then basically start my day job. I'm sure most of you are wondering, like, how do I take sales calls during the day? So I did mention this in some of my previous videos, but my job was a remote job, right? It was a remote corporate job. I was working in the IT/accounting departments at my bank, more specifically the audit department. It's a pretty boring job, but it gave me a lot of free time and I could kind of just sit at my desk for most of the day and do agency stuff. Obviously, I understand that not everyone has that kind of flexibility, so I will talk more about that later in the video. But basically, I would start my day job at 9 a.m. and I would just have like 1 or 2 meetings per day, maybe 3 for my day job. I would obviously have like, work deliverables. I would have to submit stuff to my manager and all that kind of stuff. But the cool thing is I did have quite a few hours during the day where, I could take sales calls and I could do a little bit more stuff on my agency. So the way I managed this, it was actually quite a pain in the ass. I actually had to manage both my work calendar as well as my personal calendar or my agency calendar at the same time. So whenever I got a booked call on my calendar for my agency, I would have to put it into my work calendar. Whenever I had a work meeting, I would have to put it into my personal calendar. I basically had both calendars up on my screen at all times because I was always, managing each one. And it was a huge pain in the ass, but it was pretty much necessary because I didn't want people booking a work meeting during my sales calls and vice versa, right? Otherwise that would just screw a whole bunch of shit up. It did happen a few times and it was not fun. After work, I finished around, like 5:30 p.m. I go to the gym for about an hour. It's like about 10-minute drive. So I go there until like 6:30. I was working out pretty much every day for the last year. On the days where I wasn't at the gym, I was actually at like martial arts classes. Those were like a little bit later in the day, which kind of messed up my schedule, but I did really enjoy them and they kind of kept my sanity. So after I finish eating, I just do a little bit more work, send some emails. Sometimes I'd like just keep working because I procrastinate during the day or some shit. At around 9 or 8:30 p.m., I would start my night routine and I would go to bed at 10 p.m. So my night routine consists of reading, journaling sometimes, not all the time, drinking some tea. And of course, that was just on the weekdays, right? So on the weekends, I would try to get a lot more work done. Obviously, I wouldn't be doing outreach on weekends because we try to like avoid being sent to spam. So I'd be doing a lot more focus work. I'd be writing my YouTube scripts, recording my YouTube videos. Sometimes I try to do a bit of planning because, during the day or during the work week, you don't really have much time to do that. You're just kind of like going through the motions, just trying to get work done. And the weekend was kind of a nice quiet time where I could just sit alone in my house, even though I was always alone in my house, and just, sit down and do some planning, sit down and do some more focused, quiet work. I would work like pretty much the entire weekend. However, like I think every 1 or 2 weeks, I would take about a half day off. So I would either take the Saturday afternoon or the Sunday afternoon off, and I would just kind of chill. I would like maybe go outside, watch some anime because I was lonely as fuck. And my city also has a nice riverside, so I kind of go there to just walk around and relieve my mental health and mental stress once in a while. But yeah, that was pretty much my entire schedule. As you can see, it wasn't that interesting. I didn't have this crazy like super self-improvement routine where I would like go cold shower. I didn't cold shower that much, by the way, maybe like once in a while. It was just sit down, do work, record videos, do work. That was my entire life, and it still is my entire life. Now, I do want to appreciate the fact that not everyone will have as much flexibility, dare I say luxury, as me, right? To be able to sit at home and work at a full-time job for only like a few hours per day while actually running their agency on the side on a separate screen. So now I'm going to go through some of the tips and some of the ideas and optimizations I would personally recommend if you are someone who is working in 9 to 5 and trying to manage all this stuff. So one thing I do want to put out there is that although an agency is a really good business to start because it teaches you a lot of the vital skills for running a business like sales, marketing, operations, all that kind of stuff, it's not the best business model for someone who's working at 9 to 5. There's a reason that drop shipping and Amazon FBA and all this other stuff out there sells so much better, in terms of like all these gurus advertising them or doing YouTube channels about them. It's because an agency is quite quite labor intensive, right? Now, there are ways to automate and optimize and remove your time from the process as much as possible when you're just starting out, but there's still going to be a lot of time investment, especially when you don't really know what you're doing. So if I were to imagine I only had maybe 2 to 3 hours per day while I was working 9 to 5, here is what I would do. And by the way, this is basically what I was doing back when I was, doing drop shipping. So my schedule is very similar because my job back then was very, very busy. I did not have time to do stuff in the middle of the day. I was working 9 to 6 at my old job, and that was much, much harder. So it is possible. I built a profitable drop shipping business. I just hated it. Anyways, so the first thing you have to keep in mind when you're working 9 to 5 trying to build a business on the side is that you have certain advantages and disadvantages. Your disadvantages are you have very little time, you have very little energy from working all day, and you probably have other bills to pay, or you have just general life responsibilities because you're not like some 15-year-old or 20-year-old in college. You actually have stuff to take care of. Now, you do have some advantages. You have money coming in, you can have some patience to actually build something proper. And you also might have a handful of skills which may serve you in your agency. For example, right, I was in a kind of client-facing role. It wasn't the same type of client. It was an auditing client where I was basically begging people to give me information all the time. But I was experienced in writing work emails, right? I was like, hey, you want to send me some stuff today? I'm following up for the 15th time today. So I do have experience with follow-ups. I do have experience with calls in a professional setting. So that's probably an advantage I should have talked about when I was just starting my journey. I do have 3 years of work experience. And some of you guys may say, hey, that's not fair. I don't have 3 years of work experience. Well, hey, guess what? You're 5 years younger than me, 10 years younger than me. Shut the fuck up. I think when you're someone who has been working for 1 year, 2 years, maybe 5 years, you have some experience under your belt. You have some confidence, some life skills, some soft skills that you can definitely leverage to at least be more professional, be more organized, and be more effective in the way that you run your business. So how do we play around these disadvantages and advantages? So the biggest one obviously is time, right? We just don't have 12 hours a day to just do something and just focus on nothing else. Not only do we not have enough time, it's really hard to focus and multitask and just alternate our attention between 2 different things or even 3 different things. So the first thing is you're gonna have to automate your outreach as much as possible, or at least condense it as much as possible so that you're only spending maybe 1 to 2 hours a day on outreach. Because let's say you're spending 5 hours a day on outreach, you're doing all these cold calls, all these manual cold DMs. Imagine what happens when you start having to manage a team. You have to start managing service delivery. Very few services you're going to be able to get away with just 100% outsourcing your service. You're going to have to manage your contractor. You're going to have to manage your client expectations. There's going to be a lot of stuff where you're going to just be in the day-to-day at the beginning, right? Until you actually have a proper team around your business. If you're spending 5 hours a day on outreach, you're not going to have time to fulfill. And even if you are starting to fulfill for clients, vice versa, right? You're not going to have time for outreach and you can't grow your business. So again, you're probably not going to be able to cold call. You're not going to be able to send 100 cold DMs per day unless you have your phone with you all the time at work. Then in that case, that is actually a possibility, I think. Honestly, for me, I think the best option is cold email. It's so much easier to automate cold email. The only problem is that I know that in some niches, it's just less effective to use cold email. I think restaurants, for example, cold calling is going to be much more effective than trying to get a hold of the owner through their email. Again, I could be wrong, but I do know that cold email doesn't work the best for every single industry, but it works to some extent. Everyone has an email. So, I think you should still try it out. Cold email has pretty much stood the test of time. And if you're not in a service or a niche where cold email works, you might want to switch your niche or service, right? And I'll talk more about that in a second. You don't necessarily want to pick your ideal niche or service right from the beginning if you're working 9 to 5. For people who are working 9 to 5, you want to take a slightly different approach to service selection and niche selection. And the main reason is, which I mentioned earlier, is that not every niche and service are going to be well accommodated to your disadvantages and to your advantages. For example, I had a guy who reached out to me. He was working 9 to 5. He had to go physically to his day job. He would spend anywhere from 8 to 10 to 12 hours at his day job every day. And he was basically trying to cold call restaurants to do web design services for them. And I was like, dude, you have basically everything working against your favor. Because the thing is sure, you're cold calling maybe 2 to 3 hours per day before you go to work. But then after that, what happens, right? What happens when you actually have to deliver on the service because he's doing web design or web development? It takes hours, dozens of hours just to do one website. If he has to do that for 3 clients per month, which is only maybe a few K, that's basically all of his free time. There's no way he's going to be able to manage both web design as well as cold calling at the same time if he wants to have an actual sustainable revenue that he can use to quit his job. And so, a lot of gurus or whatever tell you to, pick a niche that you want to serve or that you think is going to be the best fit for you. And they want to pick a service that has the best growth potential, whatever, right? It's usually pretty good advice for people who actually have the time to go in and manage it and do the day-to-day stuff. But again, if you just want to make a few K per month, 5K per month, 7K per month to quit your job, you don't necessarily need to pick your ideal service right off the bat, right? Imagine you were able to just find 5 social media management clients, maybe 2 or 3 content creation clients. That's a solid 5 to 8K per month right there, maybe even 10K per month. And then you can transition to something doing ads or doing funnel building or web design. The point is beggars can't be choosers, right? When you're working 9 to 5, I'm sorry to tell you, but you're fucked. Your time is fucked, energy is fucked. You're in a much deeper hole than someone who's, 18 20, like basically doing nothing in college or in high school, your lives are very different and your circumstances are very different. But what are you going to do about it? So what would I personally do? I really like Montel Gordon's methods. He uses basically his hybrid system where he finds like a couple of low ticket clients on Upwork, make a few K per month, and then invest in the systems, right? Hire VAs, pay for software, and then automate your cold email, automate maybe your cold DMs. I don't know how that shit works, but I think it's possible. The point is you want to basically be building systems while you're building the business, not trying to do all this shit all at the same time and then maybe piecing it back together at the end. No, you have to like be very methodical, you have to be very strategic in terms of how you approach it, and you want to make sure that you're able to spend as little time on the menial, tedious day-to-day tasks as possible. Yes, that will require monetary investment. You might have to pay for a VA for some software with your own money, but let's say you only have to spend like $500 a month to like send out like 50 to 100 cold emails per day. That's not bad, right? You're probably making a few K per month. If you're not paying like a shit ton of bills, you might want to just reinvest some of your current employment cash and just start building the systems right out the gate. I personally didn't do that. I did the Upwork route. I got like 1.5 to 2K per month in revenue, not even profit, and then I would reinvest like 1K back into building the rest of my agency. If you are, then again, you might want to go the different route where you actually get 1 or 2 low ticket clients, make a few $100 per month, and then use that profit to reinvest in the system. Now let's talk about one of the most important topics, which is taking sales calls during the day. I know for a lot of guys who are just starting out, you won't even have this problem, but once you have this problem, it will be a big problem, right? Like again, I had the very great fortune of having kind of a work from home situation where I could like just work from a laptop and manage my own schedule, or not manage my schedule, but like I would have access to my own calendar and I could tell people when I was or wasn't busy. So in your case, like let's say you have to go to the office, you're in a position where you have to like be in like the physical location for 8 hours a day. Obviously taking sales calls during the day is going to be a little more difficult. In that case, the main solution I can think of is to open up your calendar as much as possible. Like even for me, like this is something I had to do. Most people set their working hours or their call hours from like 9 to 5 working hours. That's like the default in Calendly. But for me, I did 8 a.m. to 6:30 p.m., which again isn't even that big, but like you're gonna have to like increase your availability. I also set a 12-hour per day availability on both weekend days, right? Saturday and Sunday, I was available from fucking 8 a.m. to like 6 p.m. And I did take sales calls on the weekends, right? And that's just kind of what it takes. The cool thing is business owners are willing to take sales calls on the weekend as well, because they're also busy people and they're also used to working on the weekends, which is, can help you guys out. Let's say you're working an office job, you might only be able to take calls like, 5 to 8 p.m. Or maybe you can ask your boss to like, not even ask your boss, like take an hour lunch break, take sales calls during the lunch break, take sales calls before you start your job or before you go to work. Like you just kind of have to work around your schedule. I can't really come up with some magical solution. Maybe one day I will, but for now, you're gonna have to like be as flexible with your time as possible. And a daily routine does help, but a lot of the time you just kind of have to like throw that routine out the window and just do whatever it takes to get those first few clients. One extra tip you could look into if you're a 9-to-5er is to actually completely change your working arrangements, as in actually find a new job that better suits your needs to build a business on the side. This is what I did. I actually quit my good career path job at a consulting firm, went to like bang, completely killed my prospects for my future in that career path, but it gave me more time. It actually paid a bit better. I was a lot more flexible with my schedule, and this is what allowed me to kind of build my business a lot more effectively. I know that not everyone can do that, but if this is an option for you, like this is one of the main ideas from the book, The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. If you want to make a big change in your life, you might have to take drastic action, and that's what I did, right? I knew that I wasn't going to be working a 9-to-5 for the rest of my life, no matter what. So I knew that this was something I could do for sure, because it would make my life better. Something to look into if you potentially have the option. But hopefully this video helped for some of you guys. Hopefully this gave you an idea of kind of what my life looked like. It wasn't anything extravagant. It was painful, but it was worth it. So if you're thinking about doing the same, I wish you the best of luck. It's not going to be easy. Maybe try to reach out to me on Discord. I'm happy to like, chat with some of the guys who are in this process, because I think it's a journey that's very near and dear to my heart, and it's basically my entire story, right? So hope you guys found this helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video.